Ты торгуешь пушками?
Может, зайдешь ко мне в номер, и я покажу тебе свою, пушку. You look a little lost, Simeon. Is the world changing too fast?
I'm here, aren't I?
Not all of you, I think. You've gotten so rich selling for the CIA, you can't seem to get that ideology completely out of your head.
Oh, the Cold War had its uses. Kept the tensions frozen. Now it's harder to determine which side one's on. Things have become more complicated.
No, it's gotten simpler. There's no place in gun running for politics anymore, Simeon. I saw the leftists and rightists. I saw the pacifists, but they're not the most regular of customers. Of course, you're not a true internationalist until you've supplied weapons to kill your own countrymen.
This current state of chaos won't last forever. Will have to be order. Instead of cutting each other's throats, it may be beneficial if we work together. What do you think?
What do I think? I think you are the amateur now. I think you should go with your instincts, with your first instinct. I'm the same man who was not good enough for you before, and I'm just not good enough for you now.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to Pnoid News. Well, today we're going to have a conversation about George Friedman because y'all keep coming in my comment section and telling me I should watch this guy. And I'll be honest, all right? I know who George Friedman is. I've seen his stuff. But the guy is constantly wrong about things. He's not wrong because he's dumb. He's not wrong because he's incompetent. He's wrong because he has spent his entire life working for the Carnegie Institute, which basically is a think tank for the military. And when you are that just engulfed inside of the military industrial complex, that's the only angle that you see anything from. Let me give you an example. George Friedman wrote a book that said by 2020 we would be at war with Japan. Here, check this out.
This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Stay tuned to learn more. Around a year ago, I made a video discussing a book by political analyst George Friedman that was written in 2009, and it tried to predict the next century. Since it had been over a decade since it was published, I thought it would be interesting to see what he got right, what he got wrong, and what predictions just seem absolutely absurd. Like how World War III would be between the US, Turkey, and Japan, and that China would just collapse before then somehow. But as it turns out, George Friedman has made other books with weird future predictions, and at the request of you guys, I'm going to go over one of his first published works, The Coming War with Japan, published in 1991. That's right, this book predicted a supposedly upcoming war with Japan against the United States. What did this book think the war would happen by? About 2020. Well, that should make this extra interesting. Toasty!
Now, I'm not here to tell y'all who y'all should and should not listen to, right? That's not my job, right? It's not my job to make the decisions for what it is that y'all do, all right? My job is to stand here and bring you information. And when I see something that I go, man, listen, like, I think this guy is wrong, and it's not that I don't think he's trying to mislead people. I just think that he's in a position where he is surrounded by idiots and yes men and people who have no idea what they're doing as a whole. And so his basic premise of things are completely screwed up. Like, here, check this out. He thinks that Poland is going to be a future superpower.
When a country becomes of fundamental strategic importance to the world's leading power, able to make massive economic concessions and technology transfers, that has a real consequence. As an example, I'll give you South Korea. If I said to you in 1950 that South Korea would be one of the most robust, dynamic economies in Asia, you'd laugh. Why did that happen? Well, it happened because South Korea was of fundamental interest to the United States, the United States had to make certain of the viability of South Korea, and South Korea benefited wildly from that relationship. Another example is Israel. There was no intrinsic reason why Israel would have emerged as anything but an economic basket case, save for the financial and economic transfers the United States chose to make. And these are excepting the obvious cases of West Germany and Japan. Strategic relationships with the United States, not poverty relationships with the United States, but places where the United States badly needs a country, transforms its economy, particularly when you have a disciplined and capable workforce, which the Poles have. And especially when you're sandwiched between two countries that may well cooperate and for whom you have no great love. I mean, if you ask a Pole about whether you prefer a Russian or a German, they'll say an American. I mean, the last time was the French. They prefer anyone. And it is not clear that Germany is prepared to participate in other competition with Russia, that it's in a position to do so. It's certainly not clear that Russian and American interests in this matter are going to go hand in hand. And therefore, the United States either concedes the possibility of a German-Russian entente, which would have geopolitical implications for the United States that would be substantial, or the United States has a relationship with Poland. Clearly, it was the decision of the Bush administration to have that strategic relationship with Poland. The Obama administration is now reconsidering it. Whether or not there's a missile defense system or not is really inconsequential. Poland is a critical country.
Now, when we stand here and we talk about geopolitics, what that is geography and politics combined. All right, this is an important ideology to have. So when you look at a map of a place like Europe, you have to understand that geography is highly important. Okay, so when you talk about a place like Poland, you look and you go, shit, man, like, where's the shipping routes for a place like Poland? You literally have to go past Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the UK, Germany, Holland, Belgium, France, Spain, and there's no southern, water routes, and everything else goes over top of land. So that means you have to go through Germany, France, Belgium, Spain, Italy, Austria, Bosnia, Croatia, right? Like Macedonia, Greece, Albania. Where's the shipping routes in order to make this work? And that's opposed to a country like South Korea. The reason why South Korea has been successful is because South Korea is a peninsula in northern Asia that literally, you can go right through the Sea of Japan into the Atlantic Ocean and right into the shipping lanes. And you can hop in, you can have freighters stop and grab containers on the way over to America. This is why Korea is successful, as opposed to a place like Poland. This is why we don't listen to guys like George Friedman as a whole, because the part of, geopolitics that he misses is the most important part, which is geography. It's half of the name, right? So, and recently George Friedman has had a massive blunder. And he came out and he said that he didn't think Russia would attack Ukraine, when everybody else is standing here going, yeah, it's probably going to happen as a whole. It's most likely going to happen. And it's something that was needed to happen for a while, because Russia knows that it's, basic survival is on the line. Here, check this out.
He wants Ukraine. He doesn't want to pay a price for it, not a military price, because he could lose. And that's really important. What he's doing is trying to rebuild the Soviet Union. He's done that in the South Caucasus. He's done that in Central Asia. He's done that in Belarus. He's a KGB man. He wants, as a CIA guy would do, my country fell apart. I want to build it together before I die. And he wants to have Ukraine. That's the crucial thing. But he's very, very cautious. He's always been cautious. And what he's doing, I think, is testing the Americans particularly, but also seeing if he sees weakness and division among the Ukrainians. But I'd be very surprised if he would take the enormous risk of attacking. Well, there's a part of the Ukraine that is Russian, and that's the Donbas region in the east. And these are mostly Russians who don't like the Ukrainians. Ukraine has never been an independent country, not really. It has always been a satrapy of the Soviet Union, Russia, and it's never been very comfortable with the West either. So it's a very strange place, and it's highly fragmented, but it has one element. It's huge. And even if empty, invading this huge country and pacifying it would be quite difficult. But what he wants to do is create an atmosphere in which the Ukrainians realize the United States can't be counted on. Publicly, the U.S. has stated it's going to freeze the banking system. And if the Europeans join that, that is painful. But the American counter is going to be missiles. They're coming in with tanks in 3 different columns. That columns, they need petroleum, they need food, they need everything. The Americans will attack from missiles and some air power those supply dumps. And that will make it very difficult for him to proceed.
See, there's been a lot of this mentality out here of individuals looking at Putin going, what is Putin doing? What's he thinking? And like, the problem is that it's kind of like what people do when like you go to court, right? Like I was waiting trial for a while. I was on bail, and people used to stand here and they would go like, what are they thinking? Well, they're not thinking. Like, you're a box at Amazon that some worker packed up like 3 Tuesdays ago. Like, they don't remember you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not thought of in that way. And it's kind of the same way when you're talking about world leaders. Like, a lot of times they're doing things because like this is what they need to do. Right? The Russian demography is terrible, right? Literally, like, they had a baby bust back in, like 1945 they never recovered from. Right? They murdered something like, or 30% of the male population died in World War II. Like, it's been bad for a long time in Russia, right? They had a baby boom, but it's nowhere near what the rest of ours was. And they have no real borders, right? Like, in the USSR, their borders were like smaller than they are right now. When you talk about like needs for defense, it's because of geography. Again, we get back to George Friedman doesn't understand geography as a whole, right? He doesn't even look at it. It doesn't play into his head because, again, he's linked up into the government structure, and these government individuals are all liberals who think that geography doesn't matter because, like, they're international citizens, right? This is an important mentality to understand. And this is why, like, I tell you all about these things, because like I want you to understand the way individuals move is based on their class and ideology that they were taught in places like college and universities. So if you look at a topographical map of Europe, you can see that, like, Europe is a basket case when it comes down to it. But like, there's a large northern European plain that runs straight across into Russia. But there's some choke points in it when you start talking about like the Carpathian Mountains, you know what I'm saying? Like the Alps, things of this nature. And when you have these things, you are able to sit here and be able to like secure your borders with less people. That's what Putin's attempting to do. Putin isn't attempting to rebuild the USSR. Like, these people are fucking dumb. Like, if it was me, I would tell them, like, hey, look, you want a couple of bases on these mountains so you can, like, have some tanks there in case, like, you're worried about things? Yeah, go all day. Like, yeah, and enjoy yourself, right? Like, and it would literally just secure the whole continent, and he would feel comfortable. He would no longer have to worry about conquering individuals in order to stop people from invading, because, like, what he really wants is just a security checkpoint at those mountains. That's all he wants, to be able to plug those gaps with less troops. Simple. Right? And Western or Eastern Europe, you know what I mean, is literally in his way of doing this. And NATO's in his way of doing this. This is why we should have never expanded NATO as a whole. Because Russia could have easily said, hey, look, just let us put a couple of, like, you know what I mean, like, stations on either side of this mountain to stop Germany and France. We're not worried about Poland invading. They're not concerned about Poland invading or Lithuania or Finland, right? They're not worried about Latvia invading. These countries will never invade Russia. They're nowhere near strong enough. They're concerned about the Germans and the French and the British and Spanish, right? Well, not so much the Spanish and the Italians, right? Because all these countries will go out on some missions when time to time. And let's be honest here, Russia has been invaded every century for the past 6 centuries. This is geopolitics, folks. Welcome to it. That's really what's going on. Anyways, Tom Pease with Pnoid News. I hope you all enjoyed this. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.